Clears here, ladies and gentlemen, is a naturalnews.com story that you can also find up at Infowars.com. And I want to be clear here with Mike Adams, and I know he's being clear as well. We support digital fiat currencies, gold currencies, silver currencies, open source currencies, free currencies, diverse currencies, not just the private Federal Reserve note that masquerades as the dollar. I want to be 110% clear right now about that. My issue is my spidey sense months ago, well, a year ago, when this first started getting hyped, when everybody's talking about it, when did Kennedy's dad, Joe Kennedy, say he got out of the stock market when a shoeshine boy the day before it crashed told him what stock to buy? Actually, he was an insider and Warren, but that was kind of his story. Everybody's getting into Bitcoin, and it's foggy where it came from. I'm sure some good libertarians are involved, but this can be used just like they used a fake test to discredit alternative energy back in the 80s to try to discredit and then outlaw digital open source currencies. And I'm very, very worried about this up front. I've not bought any. I could tell it was going to go up the way it was just being hyped and pushed in ways I didn't understand. And I'm very, very suspicious of the whole thing. And again, they've gone completely parabolic. It's going straight up right now. There's new documents out that the central banks are artificially depressing gold and silver to keep the bond market up and to cover up inflation. So this is going straight up while gold and silver is being driven down a bit right now. So Mike Adams of Natural News pops in to get, he's a smart business guy and on many fronts. I tend to respect his opinion. Well, I don't tend to. I haven't found anything I disagree with Mike Adams on. That's rare to say. Disagree with myself more half the time listening to rebroadcast than I do with him. Mike, what is your take on this, and why are you saying the Bitcoin bubble, why speculative Bitcoin buy-ins now point to a disastrous Bitcoin crash? Mike Adams of naturalnews.com.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me on. And I'm glad you pointed out that we both are supporters of a decentralized peer-to-peer cryptocurrency in theory. The idea is wonderful. We need competition for the central banks. So I'm not anti-Bitcoin, and I want to be very, very clear about that. In fact, we promoted it. I mean, our store even accepts Bitcoins. You know, we want people in Bitcoins overall. But what's happening now is it has converted. It's become too popular too quickly. It has become a mania.
By the way, you know I privately predicted that to you.
You did. Yes, you did. You're exactly right on.
But I smell something here.
Well, it could be that it's just people jumping on board. I mean, we're seeing this, you know, we have an office in Asia, and we've been getting inside reports that in China now, this is the new casino. Buy Bitcoins, ride it, you know, buy it low and sell it high. This is a speculative bubble in the making. It doesn't mean it's going to crash tomorrow. It may still go much, much higher. It could reach 500, it could reach 1,000, even $10,000 a Bitcoin. But eventually, it's going to crash hard. And I bet my reputation on that, Alex. I am 100% sure we're going to see a massive Bitcoin crash at some point with an ultra-accelerated velocity of the crash. It will be the fastest crash of any currency in the history of human civilization. And there are mathematical reasons for that I've tried to lay out in the story that I just published. I think it's up on Infowars. But it will be a high-velocity crash. The reason is because people are buying Bitcoins who don't know what Bitcoins are and who have no use for them. These are speculators. They're buying Bitcoins in the same way that people bought tulip bulbs in the tulip bulb mania of, I think, 1637. It's going to be the same thing. It's just a new vehicle, and it's going to crash Bitcoins eventually, at which point they will become a good value to buy once the crash has happened, Alex.
Go over some more of the mathematics for people.
All right. Well, everybody who's holding Bitcoins right now believes that their Bitcoins are worth $200, $210 because that's the latest market price for the Bitcoins. So there has been literally hundreds of millions of dollars in valuation that has been artificially created by the ramp up in Bitcoin prices. So everyone who holds Bitcoins thinks all their Bitcoins are worth that. And in a grand total, it's well over $1 billion. In truth, though, once a sell-off begins, the greed that is currently pushing the market upwards will transition into fear. The price support will falter. The fear will start a sell-off. The sell-off will start to devalue the holdings that current people have in Bitcoins, once they see their money dropping down, they're going to start selling.
That's right. Slow growth is always the healthiest. When something goes straight up like an Atlas rocket, it's going to go straight down, and you already see them putting money laundering rules onto it, just preparing to try to then outlaw any competing digital currency, because the globalists are actually going to go themselves on record to a global SDR backed up by carbon taxes, wellhead taxes, and money transfer Tobin taxes. So they will try to strangle this in the crib. They may even be pumping money into it so that they can then dump it later. I mean, if they didn't, look, I think like the enemy. If I was the enemy, I'd do that.
Exactly. The central banks will be very smart right now to be buying Bitcoins, pushing it up, making it very, very popular, getting as many people on board as possible. And then when the timing is right, do a mass sell-off of Bitcoins, flood the marketplace with massive supply of Bitcoins, causing a crash, causing Bitcoins to be discredited so that no one ever trusts a decentralized, non-government-run currency again. That's the brilliant, evil tactic of the central bankers, who we know are deeply engaged in psychological warfare and market manipulations. So I think they are involved right now. Well, just remember that right now what's driving the Bitcoin market is greed. The idea that you can buy low and sell high. Greed will turn to fear, as it has always done, Alex, in the tulip bulb bubble, in the dot-com bubble, that I also publicly predicted that it was going to crash 2 years before it did. And I know you did as well. And in the housing bubble, every bubble in history has the same psychological profile. Eventually, greed will turn to fear. Fear will turn to panic. And remember that the Wall Street stock markets, they have limits of how quickly a stock can drop in a day. They will close the market if it limits down too much. So you have a limit down and a cooling off period overnight. Bitcoin has no limits. There's no cooling period. That's why when the crash begins, it will be the most rapid, high-velocity crash of any currency in history. That's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. Oh, and one more important point, Alex. There are some very, very smart people who are going to get very rich off of this, who have built in algorithms to sell Bitcoin when it drops below a certain fixed market value. It's an automated, computerized selling system. They're going to make money because they'll be able to get out. But the result of that system is that it will accelerate the downward spiral of prices faster than most humans can respond. You're going to see the Bitcoin exchanges overloaded during the crash, and people won't be able to get out until the value is...
What's your gut tell you? Because they've been having some minor glitches, I think, to train people to stay in when it finally mega plunges, to deliver the maximum profit to the insiders. I mean, is it possible that Bitcoin could have been created by the system itself?
My gut tells me that it wasn't. I think it was probably created by some libertarian-minded mathematicians who, by the way, right now are billionaires for sure. But it can be manipulated by the central banks and the system, and I think it is being manipulated. And my gut tells me that this may go considerably higher still, but the higher it goes, the worse the crash is going to be. And the ultimate goal is to discredit Bitcoin, which I am against. I'm a proponent of this cryptocurrency.
Absolutely, but the operatives will spin it that we're against it. Okay, I want to shift gears with you. You've got a lot of contacts in Asia, I know.